Hey guys, Snowmisers Inflatables. What I have here is just a little review of my 2004 12.5 feet wide air balloon inflatable sledding snowmen. And the wind's kind of blowing, so they're getting tipped forward a little bit. I don't have the stakes in it just because of the size of it. But anyways, so I bought this last year off of Holiday Master around this time for $100, and it was a great deal. He's a very good seller, in my opinion. Good, honest description of it, so I'm really happy with it still, and it still works really well even a year later. Now, he did say that, of course, this is melting a little bit, and there are some thin spots, like there are spiderwebs kind of thin spots on the yellow sleds, but other than that, it's really good condition. So just a little review, I guess, of owning a brand new inflatable that's this old. So one thing that you got to do if you get a brand new inflatable like this is, the first thing, you got to keep it in a cool, dry place. So I have this in my garage, and usually stays about 65 in my garage, and it's pretty dry too. And I also have this on a shelf, so if there happened to be any moisture on the ground, it wouldn't get to this thing. So yeah, that's how you store these things, and that's really important because a lot of people will have these stored in an attic, and in the attic, it's insulated, but it gets hot up there because there's no air conditioning. So the insulation in attics it's just there above the ceiling in most of them. Now, some of them have, if you live in a really big house that's kind of newer, then sometimes those ones will have finished attics upstairs with air conditioning in them. But for a lot of people, it's only insulated on the ceiling, so that's not going to keep these things from melting away. So that's what happened to my 9-foot tall ticket booth carousel from 2011. 2007, not 11. It's all melted, and it's still brand new, but the coating is all melted on it. So that's what happens if you store these in hot climate, because 10 months out of the year at least, these things are just sitting in the box. So if you don't store them correctly, pretty much the whole time that they're in the boxes, it's just going to be melting. And like I said, that's about 10 or 11 months out of every year. So, because most people only display these for about a month before they put them away. Last year, I did these about maybe 2 months, and I put the classic ones in before because I didn't want them to get all worn out from the elements. But that's tip number one. You gotta store them in a cool place, because that's pretty much the main thing you gotta do. It's pretty much necessary if you want to keep these things for a little while, keep them in good condition. So then the second thing is, like I mentioned before, you don't want to keep these out too long. So that's tip number 2. You don't want to keep them displayed for too long, for a very long period of time, because in these old inflatables, the coating on them is not as good as it used to be. So if it rains or something, it'll all wash out. People have had these things before, and this one person I heard of, it was on an inflatable group in Facebook, they said that they got a brand new inflatable Eeyore, paid $100+ for it, and it was melting. As soon as they took it out of the box, it was all sticky and melting and everything. And after the first rain that they had, the rain washed all that coating out, so it was just flat with a little bit of air pocket in the back with the fan blowing. It didn't inflate at all. It was just like old laundry just thrown out on the lawn. So don't store these outside for a long amount of time, because the rain does affect them. But apparently that Eeyore one was stored in an attic, like tip number 1 says not to do. What I said not to do. So that's what happens. If you keep them out too long, then sometimes the coating washes off and they don't inflate as well. But most of the time you're going to be good. It's just that you don't want to do that. So that's tip number 2 out of the way. And then finally, you want to keep them clean, and you want to just take good care of them. Don't inflate them when the wind is going 70 miles an hour. Don't just, I don't know. Don't put them right next to your driveway of the road, because you never know if a car is going to back into it or accidentally veer off the path and into the side. And the tethers and stakes, you want to use good stakes on it. Don't make the tethers too tight either. And that's on any inflatable, because if they're too tight, they might rip out of the side. If they're too loose, then it's going to be jostled around everywhere. And all of the big inflatables and all of the old inflatables use C7s, incandescent light bulbs. And those things, if they take a beating, they won't work anymore, and you got to replace them. So if you've got an inflatable where the tethers are real loose and it's being thrown around by the wind, then those lights are all going to get busted out within a few days. So you want to keep the tethers tight, but not too tight. And you want to keep replacing the lights in it, because a lot of people I've seen, when I drive around my town at Christmas time, people will have inflatables out, and I can't even see them because the lights are all out inside. So you want to keep the lights in good condition as well as the stakes. And then the fan, perhaps the most important part. In the fan, you don't want to turn it upside down or towards the sky, because what happened to me one time, an inflatable got blown over, and of course you guys know that all the base fans nowadays come with cheap stakes. So the wind just ripped the cheap stakes out of the ground, and it tipped the fan up the vent towards the sun. And what happened was, when the rain came, it rained inside of that fan, and all the water went down in there, and it killed the motor. So, and these old ones especially, you want to be careful about that. But this one here, this one has a heavy-duty base fan under here. And those heavy-duty base fans, the actual fan casing, the blade, it's inside one case that blows out air. And then there's another cover that goes over top of that, because the motor is outside of that plastic piece. So it's like the blower housing is here, and it blows out this way. And then the fan, the actual motor that turns the blade, it's on the outside of that case, that housing. So it needs another big case to go over the whole thing. So it's a very heavy duty motor, and there's pretty likely no chance of water getting into the motor part. But if any water does get into the motor, it's not coming out, because that fan's pretty sealed. So yeah, that's a lot of these old ones. They have the big fans in them, but the newer you get, the cheaper the fans get. So just be careful with the fan, and just keep good stakes in it, and keep replacing the lights so people can see it at night. Just do all that kind of stuff. And if there's a leaf or something on it, or if there's a leaf, some kind of blade of grass, or dirt, you just wipe it off. I mean, you got to come out every day to check these things, make sure they're good, because if you leave them alone, they're going to get stained and they're going to have other problems. So you want to keep an eye on them. You want check them daily. I mean, it even tells you that in the instructions for all of the inflatables. No matter what, if they're old or new, it always says go out and adjust them whenever they need it, because if you don't, then they're not going to work right. A leaf could get stuck on the vent, keep it from inflating. So just take good care of them, and that's basically it. Just to summarize, store them in a cool, dry place. Use good tethers and stakes on them. Don't let them get blown around. Don't leave them outside for too long. And because if you think about it, like I said before, and I've said time and time again in this video, don't keep them outside too long, because 10-month... shoot. Okay, sorry about that. I kind of got lost in my speech. But what I was saying is, don't keep them outside too long, because they lose their coating when you keep them out too long. And then these things are only out once a month, a year or so. So they're in their boxes about 10 or 11 months out of the year. So if you have an inflatable for 12 years, then it's basically the equivalent of using it for 12 months. So it's only a year. So this inflatable here is 19 years old. So this inflatable would have been used for about maybe 19 months if it was used every single Christmas season. So if you think about it, these don't even last a year sometimes. So you gotta limit the time that you have them outside, because a lot of people don't realize that it's getting blown. That's what happens when you don't use stakes the right way. You don't have any. So anyways, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. And I'll try to post some more inflatable content pretty soon, maybe today. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And I'm gonna get this thing back in the box.